Bonjour tout le monde. Welcome. My name's Don Iveson. I'm the co-chair of the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness and a recovering politician. So I'll be uncharacteristically brief for today since I'm not the main event for once, which is actually a huge relief for me. Our main event is Mohammed Abdallah from Connections for Seniors. We just met 90 seconds ago, so I can't give a deep introduction to him, but I did look up and note that he did a podcast or an interview with Danny Breen, the mayor of St. John's, who's a good guy. How's Danny doing?
He's good.
Danny's good. He's a senior who will one day perhaps be looking for housing as well. And so on the theme of this, hopefully not. I mean, there's sometimes life after for mayors. I think Danny's not going to leave in disgrace. So now, just a quick question so that Mohammed knows where folks are at in the room. How many of you are from the Atlantic region? A few of you. Okay, how many of you are from out west? How many of you are from up north? I know west is a very broad category, but I'm from Alberta, so I'm just going to colonize the whole west. And how many of you are from Quebec? And how many of you are from Ontario? Oh, wow, okay. And are there any folks here from outside Canada? I know we have a few folks here from the States. Oh, right on. And from other places. Welcome. Bahamas. Right on. Well, welcome everybody. I should begin by acknowledging that we're here having this conference on traditional unceded Indigenous lands. The Kainai Nation is recognized as the custodians of the lands and waters on which we gather here today in Tiohtià:ke, now known as Montreal, which is a gathering place for First Nations, Métis and Inuit people, as well as settlers from all around the world. And that diverse population of people and all of us who are here as guests, we call upon that tradition of coming together to respect the continued connections with the past, the present, and the future, and our ongoing relationships of reconciliation with Indigenous and other peoples from coast to coast to coast in this country. So as I mentioned, I've just met Mohammed, so I'm going to encourage him to introduce himself as part of his presentation. His slides will run for about 40 minutes. In his presentation on seniors housing and precarity for seniors at risk of homelessness. And then there'll be lots of time for questions, and when we come to the end of the presentation, I'll get the roving mic and come around and be Phil Donahue for a little while until we wrap up. So without further ado, bienvenue and welcome. Give a round of applause for Mohammed.
Thanks, Mark. There you go. Thanks, everyone. It's a good thing to be scheduled after lunch, so if any of you fall asleep, not because I'm boring, it's because you actually ate too much, so it's not my problem. So 8 years ago, I was sober, and we decided to start an organization because we met a lot of people that are struggling with seniors solutions. So in 2017, I was sitting around the table with a few lovely folks, and one of them said, we don't have that for seniors, and they were looking for supportive housing. And he said, nobody want to touch it because it's too much work. And I remember at the time, I went back to the office, and I kept thinking about it. One of the social workers walked in and said, you seem like zoning out. And I said, I don't like when people say there's a problem and just nobody want to touch it. Like, why not? And then she said, what's the problem? And I said, they were talking about seniors, so and so and so. And then a week after, I spoke with her and I said, would you like to join me in starting an organization? And she said, I'm leaving the country, but I would love to. And she went to the US. A few months after that, I did some research, and I learned that there is no seniors organization that do frontline work for seniors in our province. So the person that said nobody want to touch it represented a much bigger portion of our province than just an opinion of one person. Down the road, we went and met the only organization that existed in our province that was serving seniors and was delivering information. and navigating for seniors. So it's like 211. I'm not sure if you guys have that here, but you call and you say, I don't know where to find something, and they say, call this number. It's typically Google, but on the phone. My generation thing. It's okay. But after that, I actually spoke with a new social worker that joined our team. And I'm giving you that background because I want you to see the development of an idea that actually becomes reality. And the model that we have, some people say successful, but we just in the progress of it. It's successful when there's no problem, and all problems will always exist. So we'll always keep going, hopefully. When I spoke with her, she joined us after a few months. She was a social worker coming from Manitoba, and I said to her the exact same thing, but I also said, would you like to start an organization? I'm thinking about this idea. I have it from A to Z in my head now that I would love to do it. And I thought that I was giving her confidence saying that, but I was giving her a big scare, because she said, go home, see your kids, you're just tired, it's a Friday night. And I said to her, like, you don't trust that I can do it? She said, like here? No, go home. That's exactly how she reacted with that tone. I tried to imitate her mainland accent, but I can't. But she did it in the mainland accent. And then she came after a month. She was so disgruntled about the system. And I said, that's exactly why I asked you a month ago to do that. Would you like to quit your job with me and we do something about it? She said, fine, just talk to my husband. So the point is, we actually had to put our own money to start the project or the organization. I said, what I want from you is $6,000. And she said, that's it? I said, yes. So we ended up putting together $12,000 to start the organization. She quit her job first. She was much more angry at the system than I am. So she quit her job in December. I quit mine in January, after a month and a half. And I actually laid out a plan for her of how the organization would look like and what we would be having down the road. Our first pay was supposed to be 6 months in, and it was 4 months. It was 4 months on a minimum wage, so it's just nobody think like we were very successful. We kept making $15 an hour for about a few months after that. I walked one day on her, and she was crying, and I was like, what's going on? And she was like, I just bought my mascara, I think what she said, from Shoppers, which is like the drug store. I said, I couldn't connect. So I was like, so? And she was like, that's a $10 one. And I was like, so? And then she said, I'm living in poverty now, I'm struggling. So I told, myself, I was born in Egypt. Makeup is a luxury where I came from. Actually, it should be a luxury everywhere, but it's good. I'm not saying it's bad, but it wasn't the reason. But I looked at her and I said, next year, hopefully, we'll get yours from France. And I think she smiled. Funny enough, next year, I went to France to practice my French, which please don't test me after that because it's still crappy. But she came in and she said, you remember what you told me last year? And I said, no. And she said, you promised me that you will go to France and bring my makeup from there. I said, did I? I actually didn't remember. And she said, yes, and you said you're going to bring me this and this and that, and you brought them. And I said, great. Sometimes you promise with sincerity and it happens. That's all what happened. So on that note, this is a very nutshell of where we started, but I'm going to take you on a journey of how we progressed, where we are today, and where we want to achieve, and what are the barriers we have. As much as they sound random, but I just want you guys to know who we are. Should I point that somewhere? Okay. This is Amanda. She's not fake. She's real. That's the partner that joined me. In 2018, we sat down in 2017. I laid down to her what the idea is. I learned very quickly not to tell people your full vision all at once because you scared them away, and to try to bring them on step one first. And that was the first lesson I had with the conversation with Amanda. When I started to tell her we want to start an organization, she said no. But when I told her, let's do an emergency shelter program that actually functioned differently than any other shelter in town. We were the first shelter in town or in the province that actually do a wraparound services with the shelter delivery services. So shelters were a bit ahead, as we call them. Someone come in, sleep, eat, and leave in the morning, and they are in the cycle. The revolving door keeps going. Nothing changes. But when we wanted to start it, we had to integrate transportation services, follow-up services, outreach, and that was the idea from the beginning. The first year budget was roughly about $150,000, but we were very successful to have multiple staff, few volunteers. It was a very small shelter, 4 beds. I remember when the government heard that we are doing the work the way we're doing, they actually reached out and said, maybe you're getting too much money because you're doing too much work with it. And my answer was, do you say that to hotels when you place someone there? Do you tell somebody that you're getting so much when you are purchasing a service? Which, after that kind of matured in my head, that government shouldn't actually tell not-for-profits what to do with their money. When you give a funding, it should be flexible and based on outcomes. I learned a lot throughout the last 8 years. I attended this conference almost every year, but I can see where we matured and where we grew up a little bit more. This year we went to Finland, we visited places around the world, and funny enough, other places around the world heard about us, from Australia, for example, and came and visited us to see why we're growing so fast. So after identifying the gaps, we moved on. We started our first 4 beds. A lot of sleeping on the floor to fill in proposals. We had 0 experience on the high level. I was 28 years old, as long as I look 50 or 60 now, but that's just too much pressure. Working in that field gets you a lot of gray. It's fashionable. It's okay. Newfoundland is the fastest aging population in Canada as a province. 23% are aged over 65. Some data just to give a background to why we're doing the work we're doing. We don't have too many programs for seniors throughout the province. Our organization started from, again, the 4-bed shelter, and I will come down to where we are today. Seniors that are experiencing homelessness are 24% of the total population. And I'm talking about 65 plus, not 55, and that's our mandate. That's a huge percentage. We are on the route to be 45% of the population in the next few years. So if we don't know how to do it as a province, because our population is not still that big, it's smaller than Montreal, it would be a much bigger issue for the rest that we are not treating our older adults respectively enough and doing enough for them. There is various reasons for seniors becoming homeless. It's not a one problem. A lot of people say, what is the core problem for seniors becoming homeless? And we always say it's not a one thing. Right? There's variable reasons. But actually, from Housing First perspective, it doesn't matter. It matters that we try to make sure they have housing secured for them, safe and sound, and a safe place for them to live. After working with seniors over the last 8 years, we learned a few lessons. First of all, nobody's going to help you out. We need to keep going where we're going. We need to start building what we're building. Because I don't remember the next slide, so I'm going to jump on saying that. We started as a 4-bedroom shelter. And in the second year, we increased the shelter space for 8 and then for 12. The philosophy around the shelter, we are so much against emergency shelter building. We think they should be reduced, but there was nothing for seniors. Seniors need special treatment. As if you're having for youth, children, seniors also needs to be accommodated based on their needs. And we didn't see that happening in other shelters. All quiet shelters or shelters that are diverse in the populations from age perspective, we're very abusive towards seniors at some point, whether financially, verbally, physically, and we have seen a lot of incidents from seniors living in those places. We looked at increasing the shelter space. Today, we are, I think, the biggest shelter provider in the province. So we have 47 bed over 2 sites. But just yesterday, after struggling with our municipality and province for about a year and a half, we didn't want to open a shelter. We wanted to open a one-stop shop for seniors when it comes to housing. So we started a housing center. So the idea of it was, I'm 55, I have a problem with my housing, no matter what it is, and I don't know what to do. I don't have to call 211 to direct me somewhere, that I call a plumber, and then they come and then they charge me. Whatever it is, the reason is, it's a long cycle of help. No, they can go to one place, make a phone call, and they get the assistance they want to get. Whether it's a mediation with a landlord, whether it's a problem with their landlord, with their partners, it's a situation that they need to escape in their housing arrangement, and so on. Long story short is, as of yesterday, we got our full occupancy for that building. That building will accommodate 35 people. The idea of that place is just the foundation of more services for seniors. When I'm older, I shouldn't be running around trying to access services. When I'm older, I should be comfortable and I should have a better life. And that was the whole idea of that program from the beginning. So 2 years ago, we ran into few buildings around our city that was being sold in some of the church settlements that was happening across Canada. And we were lucky to secure a church building that now is accommodating 35 people, but also case management team, and soon to have more clinical support for seniors with partnership with our healthcare services. The idea of that is that we reduce homelessness. And 12 of those beds that we have, 47 total, 12 of them will be converted into transitional housing and more medium to long-term housing options for seniors. Our organization goal eventually, and what we have built over the last 8 years goal, is that we have a better life for older adults in our community. And I cannot be more specific than that, because we look for every aspect of their life and how much it's intertwined. There is not one, again, it's not one problem for homelessness, but when we were building programs, we made it all function for the favor of the person. People become homeless for various reasons. And we knew that just providing a shelter is not going to be a solution. From there, we are looking into developing more options and more solutions. So for example, we just got approved last January to build the biggest not-for-profit housing project for our province, which is 60 affordable housing units. We were very lucky with it. I don't want to say creative, but we arranged an agreement with a business. We asked them if they would like to work with us on a long-term acquisition of their building. They didn't know what to do with the warehouse. It has been sitting there for 3 years. They're trying to sell. Ironically enough, I was looking through my emails, and I reached out to them in 2017, asking them if they would be able to work with us on something, but they were looking to have some sort of fancy condos there at the time. It didn't work out for them. We reached out to them and we agreed that we will buy it at the price they want. That project now will increase the affordable housing. It's 100% accessible. It's brand new, so there is a lot of energy savings happening there. It's city center, so it's close to all the amenities and services for seniors that they need to be close to. It's close to all the programming. It's a walk-in distance if you like to go up hills and down hills in Newfoundland. It's very tiring to walk in St. John's. I'm not sure if anybody have been to St. John's, but it's not a pleasant walk most of the time. If it's not raining too. But our goal was to start with something that is 100% accommodating. I remember when we were building the proposal, they said, so I wrote the proposal, and when one of my colleagues read it, he said, "You're putting 100% accessibility." I said, "We call it accessibility, but it's age-friendly," because that wasn't a requirement on the proposal. Every home should be built so people can live in it as long as they want. It shouldn't be something that when you turn 65 or you have a mobility challenge at some point in your life, you have to move out. We should plan for long term. We're all going to reach that point in our life, and we shouldn't be thinking about downsizing if we want to live in our own home, because it's hard to go upstairs or downstairs and so on. So when we built that project, that was the whole idea behind it. And we took it extra step. That thing doesn't work, so I'm not sure if I'm... Here you go. I have to use the... I don't think the batteries work. It's okay. It's all right. Life existed before batteries. We can manage. When we looked at the 60 units project, actually, it's a funny story of how we function, and I think there's a lot of, as I go with my storytelling, there's going to be a lot of, every one of you might see something we didn't even see, and I've learned that from telling our story. People come up with a lot of insights that we didn't have. So one thing government always do when they put out RFPs, they tell you, I want you to give me 20 units, not more than that, and not less than 3. And I don't know who said that and why, and what's the philosophy behind it. They don't tell you why. And when you actually speak to somebody, they say, that's what we just put there as a condition. It's a barrier, what I would call. So when we put our proposal, we built the first half of the proposal to the liking of the government of 20 units. And then the second half of that proposal, we built it to what actually should be, 60 units. And we told them we'll be able to save you 20% of your total budget. We'll be able to accommodate more than 20% accessibility. And it will be in the city center, which there was something. So I remember I had a phone call and they said, are you sure this is the number? I said, yes, it is the number. Just, are you going to say yes or no? He said, we just couldn't believe it. So I was asked to come back to you and call. So we said, it's 60 units. That's what we want to do. I remember they said, we're going to get back to you within 48 hours. A week after, I got a text message from the minister's office at 3 o'clock in the morning. But I was in Egypt, so it was early in the morning. And they said, announcement is happening within a few hours for you to be the highest receiving of funding in the province for that. So instead of delivering 20 units, we're delivering 60 units. And instead of building it at the cost that the government was saying, we went much lower than what they were asking. It's doable. It's not because it's coming. I always looked at RFPs as it's an opinion. It doesn't have to be the motto that we go by. Sometimes we can go back and forth and talk to our government or whoever is offering and say, I can do it better. Let's talk about that, and so on. There was not too many also not-for-profit proposals on that round of funding. So we were lucky in a lot of ways too, not just smart. Our idea also with building housing is to make sure that we have lasting solutions, which means when someone is being housed, a lot of the times there is no appropriate housing options for them. We see that a lot. So building a wraparound service or an ecosystem of housing is very important for us. So that entails to emergency shelter, which is the first experiencing homelessness or a housing emergency. Second to that will be supportive housing, which someone needs a medium between the long-term or market housing. They don't qualify for market housing, so supportive housing will be the option. Transitional housing in this situation will be the medium. So 1 to 2 years, someone needs to live there. But also we found that we have high eviction rate from personal care homes. I think here you call it long-term care. But seniors' homes, nursing homes, people go there, and last year alone there was over 65 eviction in the region that we were living in. That's high, that's very high. There's various reasons. A lot of the times people are aging and demonstrating behaviors and people think it's a baseline, but it's not. It's actually early dementia or other complications that needs to be looked into. But it doesn't work. It doesn't work for the people most of the time. They say we're for profit, we're here to have the easy client, so just get him or her out of the door and we can have someone, we will be full anyway as we have a lot of waiting list or a long waiting list. One of those stories that I always mention, when we first started, I was helping with case management, of course, along with other things, cleaning toilets, cooking meals, for fact. We had to also build a system for our case management programs. So we noticed that a lot of the system just washed its hands from people a lot of the times. So when we looked into it, we found that when people look at somebody as a paperwork, they usually get a disadvantage. I remember a gentleman came through our door, and they told us he has been evicted from 4 personal care homes. And why is that? He has very aggressive behaviors, according to his file. He uses a very foul language. He threatens staff, and he's not safe to accommodate in the personal care home system. End up coming to our shelter. I remember after 3 weeks, we started to notice that he cannot get out of the chair, for example. He can use a very colorful language. I'm not going to take that away from him. He earned it. He did. And usually staff used to come like, you need to talk to him. We connected, him and I. I remember one day I was called because the ambulance was called every single day in 1 week. So, and people just kept calling the ambulance, and that's it. So we took him to the hospital the next day. I did. I went with him to the hospital. Sat with him. The doctor was there. The doctor kept asking questions. The doctor said to him, are you feeling dizzy? Are you feeling this? Are you feeling that? His answer was always, I'm great, I'm perfect. In that line of answers. It was pride, but I asked him, we had consent to, every senior come through our door, we have a consent to work with housing and health, 2 entities that we have to be connected with. I remember I told him, can I tell the doctor a few things about what happened last 2 weeks? And I explained to the doctor what's happening. The doctor said, okay, you might have to go home alone, me, not him. And he stayed in the hospital. He said he will have to be admitted. He ended up being in the hospital for 2 weeks. Came up with 12 diagnoses. He couldn't see with one eye. He had dementia. And that's explaining the behaviors and the aggression sometimes and raising the voices. He has a neurological disease. I do not know how to say it. And he couldn't get up sometimes because his body was really just numb and he couldn't move his legs anymore. He was diagnosed with Parkinson's. He really needed a lot of help. So he moved from level 1 personal care home, which is basic needs, to level 3, which means he has now to be under our government long-term cares. We went there together, and I remember the social worker asked me to step out to talk to her, and she said, she was the manager of the floor as well, and she said, we cannot take him. His file is a disaster. He has a lot of complaints about his behavior and so on. And I explained to her, and she said, can you talk to my staff? I said, sure. So she invited me the next day, and I came in, and there was about 20 people in the room, all saying, no, we're not going to take him. And after long conversation, explaining to them, like, we should be human beings, they ended up saying, we're going to give it a shot. And I said, if you have a problem, call me. I will talk to him. They called me about 3 times after that. But he's still housed. He's still living there for the last 6.5, 7 years. COVID hit, and I couldn't see him much after that, but every holiday season we go and visit him and bring him some presents, and he's very happy. He only hates the manager, which is okay. You have to have a bad cop in that story. You cannot love everybody. So I tell him, I'm sorry about that, but everybody else likes you. And he said, yeah, everybody's great except that. And he gave her the names. She actually likes him a lot. Surprisingly, she sees the other side of him. She sees why he's like that. And she doesn't take it personal. And service providers should always not take personal anything. A lot of the problems we face nowadays from burnout and others that we take a lot on ourselves, and we should understand that we're part of the story, we're not the story. We're just the solution for that problem. A lot of the times, we actually are the only hope for people, and if we become part of the problem, it becomes a bigger issue. Anyways, long story short, he was housed, no problem after that, everything was managed, and it's also started to have a light bulb in our head. We need an outreach program. We need something to help people, support people on that. So we created our outreach program. Most of our programs coming from out of need, and that's why we have been growing so fast. So our organization started in 2018. It was Amanda and I, volunteers, few months, and so on. Today we're on the route. We're 60, and we're on the route to be 80 by the end of the year, beginning of next year. We provide roughly about 16 programs. About half of them are housing related, and the others are serving housing. So we made sure that when we create programs, it's all about aging in place, which in another language, it's about keeping people housed. That's just plain. People stay home as if they want to. So food security is a factor. Transportation is a factor. Peer support is a factor. Social isolation is a factor. These are all interrelated. And if you don't tackle them, you're not going to have success. People will become, I remember one time, thank you. I remember one time a lady came out to the shelter in the first couple of years, and I knew her from my previous role. I used to work in the Friendship Center for 5 years, and she knew me, and she wanted to come to our shelter. So she came in and she said, I want to stay with you. I said, I understand, but this is a shelter. What's going on? And she started telling me her story, talking, and I listened to her for about like 40 minutes, and then she ended up, I said, okay, tell me the truth, why you're here. And she said, I am very bored. That's it. That was the problem. So she ended up fighting with her landlady at the time. She broke a couple of things so she can kick her out. And she actually got herself evicted on purpose so she can just go out and spend time with other people. Because before that, she was in a shelter, and it was more social life to her than actually being alone in an apartment with nobody. So I remember I said, that's a fair reason, but how about we do something else? And I remember I brought we have a resource book for seniors. We went through it. We wrote down every address for the activity in town, and we promised her at least once a week someone will take her out for a coffee. She put a condition that I have to be that one in the beginning, so I just had to free my schedule. That's okay, but she can stay housed. She ended up being housed until the last day of her life. I remember the day she passed away, they called us and she said she wanted you guys to know that she was very grateful, and that was why we're doing that work. And I always tell to our team, if someone passed away or someone actually, their life, at the last day of their life, they had the support, that's a good thing because we're there for them. They're not alone, they're not stranded, they're not on the street. I remember 2 months before we opened, a gentleman, a senior, passed away in the snow. And the story was on CBC Newfoundland, and reading it, and I remember Amanda and I said, that's why we exist. That's why community should be there. It's not anybody else's job because nobody else is there for them. We're the next of kin now to a lot of seniors in the community because they don't have a family to care for them sometimes, and so on. Are you sure? Am I supposed to point at something? Where? Okay. Thank you. Community, I will summarize this in a nutshell. Community don't have to be poor. Community organizations don't have to function in the poverty mindset. We get a lot of feedback from government, specifically when we put budgets and we have a surplus at the end, and usually they say, why do you have a surplus? I say, because we have to have a surplus for any healthy organization should have about 3 to 6 months of operation. So we budget for that. I said, yeah, but you're not for profit. You're supposed to be at zero at your end of your budget. And I said, no, it's not for profit means I don't take what's above zero in my pocket, but the organization should have more than that. The organization should be healthy financially. And I think it's an educational thing. It's just historical that not-for-profits means nobody makes any money and just they stay poor, and they are supposed to be poor, helping poor, living in poverty. It's just a very sad narrative. And we're trying now to advocate for a different mindset. Actually, not-for-profits is a business of helping people and supposed to be making money to keep helping people. So the cycle of money goes inside that organization and keep going into that organization. It shouldn't be something that it's frowned upon or looked down to, saying, why are you building an organization that is growing? Because there's a need. In the same time, not-for-profits needs to understand it's not about them as an organization. It's about the people they're serving. And if your mandate and mission is over, you move on to something else. And you can even pass on your assets to somebody else. So when our organization started, that was our mindset. So we never rented anything, except one partnership with the city of St. John's. But I'll come to that after. So we never rented anything. Every time we moved in, we purchased the asset that we were working in. And we somehow find a way, because we were very savvy about how we're managing our finances. Also, I'm not gonna lie, it's a lot of work in the beginning, especially when you're in a startup. It's not easy. You will end up looking 60 in a 38 years old body, but you will build a lot of things down the road. How? If I end up having assets as an organization that is generating more programs, it's sustainable. It's something that I don't have to shut down in 1 year because the government decided that they want to shift that budget into something else. It's our responsibility as community organization to keep those programs running, not the government. The government is a fuel. That fuel goes up and down in price, change, might not be available sometimes, but we are the engine. And in order to work out, sometimes we need to shift maybe to an electric engine or need to be hydro. We need to figure out another plan that we don't have to always be reliant on government. And that was our mindset from day one. So when we started with the $12,000, it was a house, 4 bedrooms. Today, we're roughly at $25 million. I'm not sure about our evaluation. So in the last 7 to 8 years, we have been acquiring every single property one way or another. We didn't receive any funding from the government to purchase any of those buildings. We never ask for a hand from our provincial or municipality, but we always managed our finances somehow and find a way to buy rather than just going straight forward to the government and asking for the down payment. So one of the biggest property we have now was a deal that we work with the owners to pay them on installments on a long term, and they agreed to that because they couldn't lay off that building away from them. They couldn't give it away. So we took it away from them. We worked on building that model with them. They were satisfied, we were satisfied, and we acquired that building, and now we have 60 units in the community that is being built in the next 2 years for our community. Our personal care home, we looked at it as a social enterprise. When I first came to Newfoundland, I was originally born in Egypt. I came here as a student. I've been here for almost 20 years. And I remember 10, 12 years ago, I was learning more about social enterprise, and a CEO in the community told me, we shouldn't be doing that. And I was like, why? She's like, because you don't want your donors to see that you're making money. I was like, you don't want the donors to see that we're trying to be independent? Plus, there's always a need. I'm not saying that we're going to be 100% self-sufficient, but I'm saying that we need to build capacity in order to deliver services. And the problems grow all the time. Don't worry, we're going to always have problems to ask money for. But it could be for pilots, it could be for R&D, it could be for figuring out other avenues for more solutions. It doesn't have to be always reactive, it could be proactive. But you can create a system that is covering the basics. And that's our philosophy now as an organization. Building government relations and changing policies to talk to our government that budget line funding is past due. We were just looking at the Finnish model. We were in Finland earlier this year looking at their housing solutions. And it's a service fee. Not-for-profit sell a service to the government, like a contractor, like someone that is building roads or buildings around the city. It's the same concept. For-profit are not treated like that. You don't bring a contractor and give them money to do your roads, and they'll tell them, tell me, what did you give to your family? How much was the dress for your wife or your husband's suit? You don't ask for-profit these questions. They take the money and do whatever they want with it. Not-for-profit should be treated the same. I should be free to say, I want to build more housing, so I'm going to save 20% of that budget and build more housing down the road. As long as this money is serving the mission, which as a charity now, we are accountable for the money that we are acquiring. So we should be able to be flexible with our own money that we're dealing with. The way that the charity sector is functioning in Canada now is way dated, and it's creating more problems because you actually spend 50 cents on every dollar to monitor it. And you hire more government workers. It's not the best way to put our tax money. And it's not the best way to partner with community. So far, our organization have helped over 3,000 seniors in a city that is about 250, like 200, 250. That's quite a number. We are busy. We have a lot of staff that tell me that all the time. They're sitting here now laughing at me or smiling at me. But also, it's 3,000 persons that actually had solutions in their life. It's 3,000 people that mostly housed, mostly have services in place, mostly connected to the community. They are getting their basic needs met. Our transportation program is one of the busiest. We also acquired our own vehicles. We are now going to be fully functional in regards of transportation. So we provide accessible vehicle to seniors. We provide transportation based on health needs, housing needs, food needs, and financial needs. So those four main aspects are covered if someone wants to go somewhere and get support. So they will not be left behind. And we had that story a lot. Seniors couldn't go and view an apartment to move. Sometimes people actually become homeless because they couldn't go around the city to see where they want to move. And providing transportation is essential to that service. And that's also part of why funding should be flexible. Because down the road when you're running your program, you should have the freedom to say, I need to keep those couple of $1,000s for transportation. I think that will make my program function better. I have more learnings now as I'm moving forward, and I don't have to wait another 3 years for that program budget to be over in order to adjust and pivot and do something else after 3 years. And that's why we see change happening 5 to 10 years, because money is available to do different things after we have learnings after 5 and 10 years. But if you actually give that freedom to organizations, organizations will show you as firsthand where the solutions are right away. And we will pivot faster than government. Would we? Yeah, we would. So we would actually go forward with a lot of solutions if we don't have those too many constraints and restrictions. We have seen a reduction in calling like the RNC and emergency services, as again, a lot of those reasons have been covered for a lot of the older adults. We didn't replicate any service in our community. Any service that is being done, whether we supplement it or work with them. I know I traveled across the country and I've seen communities function differently, but we will not achieve solutions without partnerships and collaboration. And leaders that don't see that, they don't see their mission. And I'm so sorry to be very honest about it. It's not, and I remember when I was doing a strategy study once, one of the professors was saying, not-for-profit lose their focus once it starts to become about them, not the population that they are serving. Now this becomes an entity that needs to remain an entity and have a turf or have their own boundaries. That's not who we are as a community. Community should be part of the bigger community. And we should service each other and partner with each other and work with each other. That's one of the barriers that we found. So our community is lucky not to be as big, but it's also lucky to be able to work together. We have great partnerships, and trust me, you don't have to like each other. I usually laugh and smile at people, and I know what's going on, but they work together. It's not about me or you. It's about that we need to deliver that service to people in our community. That's all what matters. And that's what we have been seeing, and it has been progressing in our community. Our coordinated access is working very well in our community. I don't think there's any homeless organization that is not part of it, or organization that is serving homelessness that is being part of it. The reason is people understand that if they are singled out or they are out of it, it would look bad. Funny story in Finland, I asked that question. I said, what was the turning point for you to actually start solving homelessness? And he said in 2017, a politician, which became the housing minister after, went out in the media and said, this is the plan for continuing affordable housing and building them. And if you don't join us and work with us, everybody work together, I'm going to expose you in the media. I know it's cool. I was like, there was no gun in his hand, and they said no. I said, good. But if you are not able to be loyal to the population you're serving that way, you shouldn't be in that field. It's not about you, it's not about me, it's about the people we're serving. And it's fair for them to have access to everything and to make sure that we're working towards a solution. For any of you that don't know about Finland, but Finland are much more successful than the rest of the world in reducing homelessness. They moved from 20,000 people in the 87, and today it's 3,000. So they reduced their homelessness by roughly about 75 to 80%. They're community providers. Some of them have over 20,000 affordable housing units. Their government are dealing with them way ahead of it. They have the service fee. They do their evaluation based on outcomes, not dollars. And also the change of culture of outcomes, that government is also worrying about people and how you're serving them, not where's that dollar, where did you put it? I think the majority of organizations around Canada are actually putting the money where it's supposed to with all the layers of supervision they have and oversight. I don't think this is something the government should worry about as much as where those outcomes are. How many person did you serve? Why didn't you deliver so and so? And after a certain point, you can start to hold organizations accountable if they don't deliver, as they should. Why you're not delivering? Maybe there's a problem we need to discuss and so on. But when it becomes a person-centered solution, everything will be about the people that we're serving, from government level to the person themselves that are receiving our service. In the next 5 years, we're building now our strategic plan is dying now. It's the last year, next year. So our goal is to start looking at a provincial support. We have an 80-unit affordable housing units in the closest town to us that is hopefully gonna be alive in the next 2 years, 3 years. The idea is that we create housing solutions across the province and be ahead of the curve. Our need for affordable housing is not a reactive measurement. It should be always available. We complain about short-term market rentals, the greediness of landlords, the problems that we have in the private market. But that's actually not the issue. The issue is that we don't have enough affordable housing. Because Finland, for example, have affordable housing, and they have long-term market rentals, but they don't have the same problems we have. They had an influx of 60,000 Ukrainians coming as a refugee after the war, and they housed them all. Why? Because they have available. When we start to yell at people because we're not planning things in the correct way, it's a distraction. The real problem is, what are we doing wrong that we're in this position today? We're not building enough affordable housing across the country. We didn't invest. Canada stopped investing in affordable housing in the early 90s. And that's why we're here today. Because they start to say, okay, we don't have as much of a problem anymore, let's stop here. And that's when it started to be a problem today. And it will continue to be if we think about like that over 10 years and build enough housing and then stop. It needs to be an ongoing strategy. We need to always have housing. It's something that if it's vacant, it's okay, you can use it for something else and then return it back to housing again. But have it there, because building them takes longer time. Part of our problems as well that we see, that we think that it always costs too much to build a program. And an example of that, I remember 4 years ago, an article came on CBC talking about how the city of St. John's have very high vacancy. I think at the time it was about 10%. And that's why a lot of people are experiencing homelessness, and they were unsheltered. I remember a year before that, we reached out to the city and we offered them a program that we can utilize some of their units in order to deliver long-term supportive housing. Our philosophy was, when Newfoundland was building housing back in the days, it was always big homes, 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms. There was no single unit because the culture was more family-oriented. So we told them, we will house 3 people in your units, on the premises of you offset the rent and you don't pay them any subsidy for the rent. We did the math for them, and it was going to save them roughly about $100,000 a year if we do it in that model. The whole program it would cost 12 beds, 12 units for seniors, at $36,000. That's all what we asked the province to partner with us. So it was the provincial government, the municipality, and us coming together as partners in order to build a program, supportive housing program. At the same time, they were telling us, but we're looking to build new. And I said, we did an analysis about building new supportive housing. It's going to be at least $4 or $5 million at the 12 units that we're looking for. But I'm telling you, we can start it at 36,000. It took them a year, and when the article came out, they actually reached out to us and they said, we think it's a good idea, let's do it. And we did. For 5.5, 6 years so far, we have 12 people been housed. People move out for various reasons, but it has always been a solution for seniors. We actually asked them for more, but I think for political reasons, they said we don't want to give everything to one organization. So they're trying to partner with other organizations, which we are okay with. If one person is housed, it doesn't matter which avenue they take. It's just there is a solution out there for them. But we're also seeing increase in homeless population. So there's not enough solutions. Our province needs to build more housing, definitely. And that's what we're trying to do. We're not looking at also small projects. When the government come and say build 6, we say that's not feasible. That's a token. You want to say that I built affordable housing. You need more than that. Our numbers say that we need at least 3,000 in the next few years, 10 to 15 years. I cannot be building 6 at that rate. That will take us like ages. Probably that's me. That's me. I put my hands in the wrong place. Sorry. Now that we are looking into more programs as an organization, we're asked to expand a lot across the province. It's very difficult. If any of you know Newfoundland and Labrador, we're very scattered communities. Sometimes 200 people in one community, and sometimes 50. It's very scattered community. It's very challenging, but half of the population live in St. John's metro area, which exposes us to a lot of experience and a lot of solutions. And that's where we're now focused. We are outside of St. John's now. Conception Bay South is part of where we function. We serve our Avalon area almost. But in order for us to keep that growth happening, we do need to build that social enterprise mentality to it. We need to have housing solution that is building, or generating more support and more income that can be serving more programs at some point. I attended a session yesterday and they were saying AI was evil, but I think everything has risk in life. Technology should be integrated in our community work because it does save a lot of time. If it comes to your mind that you will be replaced by AI, I will just tell you very happily that your great-grandfather or great-grandmother thought the same thing about machines and it didn't happen. We will not be replaced by machines because the cycle of economy, and there's a lot of economic reasons that nobody will let that happen. You need to work and have income in order for the economy to keep going. So you will not be replaced by Siri or Gemini. It's a tool. It needs to be used, it needs to be utilized, and it can create a lot of solutions for community organizations. For example, intakes. We find that they take a lot of time. Why it's not done by a computer? They can just take the basics and then the worker can connect and start the work. That hour a day, over 3,000 people, can save us a lot of money on the long term and also utilize our resources in a better way. So that person, instead of sitting there for 3,000 hours all over the year, they can actually put those 3,000 hours in something else. Despite the solutions that we're trying to create in our province, it's not one agency. Again, there's a system change that needs to happen. There is a culture change that needs to happen. And also, our organization needs to do a lot of more work than what we're doing, but capacity is a barrier, of course. It's something that we have been looking at for the last couple of years, how to tackle it. We're trying to come with more innovative solutions. Last year, we have secured some funding for research in order to look into prefab housing, for example. So instead of building over 2 years, we can build over 3 months or 4 months. That can save us a lot of time on how we're delivering housing in our province. Our government didn't buy in that yet, but we just had a shift from a Liberal government to a PC government after 10 years of being a Liberal governed province. Democracy have pros and cons, like everything else. Now we have to introduce the new government to the work that we're doing. We have to take our time. It's going to take, I would say, a year at least to have a buy-in into this. But I think we have a good case. In Labrador, for example, there was a project for 60 units that we were looking into in partnership with the community there. And the local community wanted us to take it over because they were mostly seniors, and they said, we're not going to live long enough to oversee those properties. We want to build it with you, and you take it over and manage it. It ended up being $1 million per unit. So the government, in very plain language, said, you're out of your mind. We're not doing that. So I actually said, fair enough. Like, I wouldn't pay $1 million for 1 unit. You guys have crazy housing prices here too. We don't have that yet. If you have $1 million house in Newfoundland in general, you're dealing in drugs or something. You have a problem. But the point is that we don't have that expensive housing in Newfoundland. But building north in Labrador is very expensive. It's not an affordable way of doing it. We actually brought the prices down by 40% first. And then when we looked at the prefab housing, we found that we can do it at 30% of the price. So it would cost $300,000 per unit to do. And that's because, again, it's an isolated place and the transportation there will be very expensive, but the building itself wouldn't take that much. And also we can do it in one season, within spring and summer. So it wouldn't be over 2 years, and over there you cannot build in winter. So it's something that we looked at, and I think we will have a good angle with our PC government in order for them to buy into this. Apparently that's it.
There we go. I'll come around if there are questions. Okay, I'll come to the back. And while I'm coming to you, the first question that comes to me, first of all, let's give Mohammed another round. I mean, that's an amazing story of growth and of responding to a growing challenge. My question after your presentation was, were there any lessons learned growing an organization that fast? You know, obviously taking risk, it's a social enterprise, social entrepreneurship mindset. Any, I use the word in quotation marks because it can be a good thing, failures that you learned from in the scaling process that you could share with us?
I don't want to sound like I'm giving an inspiring speech, but I don't think you fail if you don't stop. Just keep going, and you're not failing. You're just learning and moving forward. I think failure is when you say, that's it, I don't know how to do it. But we have challenges, but it's mostly external too. It's not about the mission, it's not about the goal. We always say, if the problem is from the outside, it's fixable. If it's in the inside, we need to stop and reflect, what are we doing wrong? A lot of the problems we have are barriers. We get to push back a lot of how we sometimes move fast. People praise it as much as they criticize it. Especially when we speak to the government, they say, wow, that's great, but sometimes it's like, you're moving too fast, we cannot keep up. But both are the same to us. We're moving in our direction. We will keep advocating. I tell my team, if you're not nagging somebody, you're doing something wrong. So keep nagging, keep calling, and keep coming forward to it. But the learnings is that you will always have barriers. It doesn't mean anything. It means just you're living life. You have to go through those barriers, because otherwise it means you're the government. you're doing what you want sometimes. But we're not. We're a community, we're people, and we have to convince a lot of people to join our journey. So in order to do that, people will push back on you sometimes. People will not understand what you're doing sometimes. I remember I had a board member, she was our first chair after I stepped down, and she said to me, I have been working with you for a year and a half and I don't understand what you're doing, but I support it because of the outcomes. And it took her about 3 years after that to tell me, now I get it. I didn't know how to explain it any better. I told them everything I know, but she had a social work background only. There was no financial background. So when we sit down and talk about how we're going to develop certain programs, she's like, I just trust you. Go ahead. And that's, again, I guess that's because internally we didn't have those barriers. We made sure that our functionality as an organization have that harmony. We spoke with our board very openly. We said to them, we have to work together. We cannot be the barrier. If there is an opportunity to solve an issue, we have to jump and try. And if we fail, what is the worst going to happen? We'll take the $12,000 back and just walk away. So it wasn't big of a risk at the end. When I look at it, we actually had nothing in the first day. We started this organization literally with nothing. And it was only $12,000. It's okay if we lose them.
Well, some great lessons on leadership mindset for sure. You had a question? Questions are welcome. Short speeches disguised as questions will be tolerated as long as there's something for Mohammed to respond to.
No problem.
It'll be short. Good afternoon, and thank you for your wonderful talk. I wondered if by chance, top of mind, at the beginning of your talk, you referred to a 60-unit building. Would you happen to know the capital cost of that building?
Yes.
Thank you.
The building price is $1.9 million, and it's going to cost us about $9 million to develop it. So it's roughly about 11.5. Yeah, no problem.
I'm doing the math. That's very good per unit.
Yes.
Beautiful presentation. I see what you're doing, and it makes complete sense to me. What I wanted to ask you is, if you take in a senior and the senior suddenly dies, how would you deal with that if they don't have any family support?
Usually we are the case manager or the social worker or whoever is working with them would be their next of kin, most probably. We cannot make decisions on their behalf in regards to funerals unless they allow us to or give us that permission. But we would follow up with their family. A lot of the time there is someone in their family that just didn't communicate for years, and that have happened quite often.
Okay.
So we make sure that the burial have as soon as possible. There was only one time that didn't happen, and I think there was a CBC coverage across Canada on that. There was actually during COVID, hospitals ended up having big fridges and having a lot of using as a morgue. It was a big problem across Canada, and then that got resolved after COVID. But a lot of people don't have next of kin, but that's a legislation change more than a community. But our support would be for the family to make sure that the person, if any paperwork needs to be happening, we still follow up until the funeral is done.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Well, I'm coming over to you. Did the pandemic speed you up or slow you down? Or both?
Neither, actually.
Oh, really? It's impressive.
I think we're one of 2 or 3 organizations in our community that grew during the pandemic.
Thank you for your presentation. It's been really inspiring. Number one, because you're fulfilling a huge gap, an increasing need for seniors and services. And number two, how you've done that. I think that's really inspiring for other non-profits to hear that business edge on how we can move away and be more sustainable funding-wise and move away from these government supports. My question is, it sounds like you've got lots of different, I think you said 16 different programs. I'm wondering how many of those, or if any of those, are really built around homeless prevention and that community piece to prevent that.
That's a great question.
Yeah, thank you.
So our volunteer program is all about that, peer support and food deliveries, for example. Our volunteers deliver sometimes up to 120 hamper and meal a week in our small city. Keeping people nurtured and fed is important to keep them housed. We do have a position in the case management team for keeping people housed, working with landlords trying to maintain housing. Our transportation, providing transportation for various reasons. If you look at the social determinant of health, I think 4 of them was financial, health, food security, and housing. And those 4 factors are very close to housing security and housing stability. And those programs, 4 of them, we provide services on that front to make sure people stay housed. Our success rate on people not relapsing or coming back into homelessness in the beginning was about 97%. Now that we're growing and our capacity is becoming very limited, the numbers are less. I think it's more in the 80s, but it's still quite good compared to what we can do. We have awesome team, and we're in the mindset that if you cannot deliver the help, you can figure out how. So don't say it's not my job. So people don't like me sometimes saying that, but we have to figure it out.
Hi. Really great presentation.
Thank you.
I want to commend you on something and then ask you 2 questions, if
Sure.
I may. So I work in the affordable and accessible housing space. And when I go to events or meetings, I'm always playing this game with myself. Let's see how long it takes before someone mentions accessibility. You're the first person in this conference who's mentioned accessibility. And I just want to commend you on that, because a lot of the time accessibility is not forefront. It's, last thing people think about. So for you to have a fully accessible building, that is really commendable. I think that's where we should be going with all our supportive housing.
Thank you.
So my 2 questions. One is, how often do you come across a situation where people need accessibility to stay in their homes in community to prevent them from getting homeless? And how do you deal with that? My second question is, so you have a social enterprise, but you also get government funding. What's the ratio?
It doesn't get government funding.
None of your programs get government funding?
No. The social enterprise doesn't get government funding.
Okay.
Yes.
So what's the split? What gets social and what doesn't?
So
get
we're
funded?
about 85% funded by government, programs-wise. But any assets we acquired wasn't funded by government. So that gives us the freedom to create programs around those facilities. So for example, last year we acquired an event space. And the way we could acquire that, half of it was rented at a market price, and half of it was an event and networking space. So inviting other agencies to come and do their workshops there, have their staff parties there, and so on. That generated income for us to do other things. So the idea of that program is, once it's established, it will be able to have more outreach and more housing stability programs, so people can actually stay home longer. So that's on that front. I'm hoping one day that we have 60% self-sufficiency and 40% government. That's where also when you start to have that leverage talking to your government, you actually start to have a saying on the table. What should you be doing? Because you know what you're doing, you're successful in that front, and you will be able to tell them what solutions they should be working on it with you. Government always don't like community because we're always asking. But if we start to say, I'm asking by also offering, so I'm going to put on the table 50%, 60% of what I'm asking, but you have to chip in that amount of money, and so on. So that's why social enterprise is very important for community organization to think in that mindset, because one day you will just become a Nokia, I say, or a BlackBerry. It's not going to be the model that is working, because others are growing in different directions and doing different work. We cannot rely on that forever. It might have worked for the last 200 years, but something is slowing down because we have more issues and more problems. And the moment we have COVID, for example, everything shuts down and people start to, we have programs that just didn't function anymore. We don't want to see that. If there is a high prices of like laying off employees across the province, donation starts to go down, organizations start to suffer. It's good to have that as a source of income, but diversify your income. Don't have one way of doing it.
My second question was about accessibility in community. Do you have seniors who would
Yes.
rather age in place at home?
100%.
How do you support them?
Right now, you can try to access some programs for funding for accessibility in your home. Our province have a program for that, but it's not as efficient as it should be. A lot of people end up being homeless because of that. So one of the things that we were thinking about is to create actually a small household, we call it like a household improvements. So a team will go in, install a chairlift. They will help out with installing bars around the house, making sure people have access to those main needs in order to age in place. At some point, it will be almost impossible because our homes are not built age-friendly. And it is a problem in Newfoundland. I'm not sure about the rest of Canada, but it seems like people didn't have mobility issues 100 years ago, apparently. But we build homes with a lot of stairs, and it's not accessible. Anyways, we're trying to work on that from that perspective, and also any property we acquire, we try to build ramps and put bars in it and try to make it as accommodating as possible. It's impossible. You need to demolish and rebuild, but we try to do that as what we have right now. Thank you.
I have a question for you. You had a little piece in there about your integration with healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to hear a little bit more about it. I know in our community we have that sort of tension point between ourselves, the shelter, we have a recuperative care program in the hospital, and then seniors,
Mm-hmm.
where we're kind of pushing and pulling that. Our agencies can't support, our recuperative care programs sometimes can, the hospital doesn't want to hold the person, and then the accessibility piece that my friend at the table brought up too. So I'm curious to hear how it's looking in your community.
It's almost the same, but there's some solutions there. Lately, especially after COVID, our healthcare system got really integrated with the housing system. It wasn't like that before. We still have the same issue. People end up in the ER, being evicted, or don't have a place to go, and they end up being at our shelter doorstep. That happens. But advocacy and sometimes learning where to push on the system and where actually to say, actually, this is still your problem, we have to work on it together. I remember a case conference once, someone ended up in the hospital and they sent it to our shelter. That was a few years ago. And I did call one of the directors and we had a conversation and said, they will end up in the hospital, but that's not the right practice. We can drive them back there and leave them in the ER and then it becomes your problem. But how about we have a meeting and we actually try to figure out a solution together? So it started to be a practice after that. So every time we used to have a problem after that, we will have a case conference. They bring all the involved parties, and what we offer as a solution usually get heard because we take a big piece of it. So we would say we would help them getting housed, but health has to make sure they are getting those services in place. So for example, home care services are needed in our shelter. They used to refuse that back in the days. Now we say no, they have to come to our shelter and be with the person as they're staying with us. So if someone has physical needs, we cannot be in a shelter space. That's not the appropriate place for them. Also, the hospital is very expensive to be there because you need some minimal support with your physical needs. So we come to a medium that we will work with them, and usually we house them right away, and then they move into the next step. Meeting in the middle is, I think, the solution is. Just if you work with me, I'll work with you. But if you make it my problem, I can also make it your problem. It's a political thing that goes back and forth all the time. But it's the nature of the beast. That's how it works on that front. We have to sometimes push back and advocate, and eventually, as an organization, I hear it a lot from organizations say, "That's my funder. I cannot piss them off or make them mad." We're not like that. We are the representative of the people. So we work with seniors, and that's the voice we should be echoing. So I would push back on a government official, and they should be taking it from us, because other people don't have that voice. They don't know their rights sometimes. They don't know how to advocate for themselves. And that's our job. So if we don't do that, we're not being fair to the people that we tell them we're here for you. And that's what we do. We push back, and we have had very heated discussions sometimes.
Hi, thank you for your presentation today. It was very inspiring. A comment and a question. Just my comment is with regards to what you said about not replicating services. I think that is just so important. I originally came from the nonprofit world. I'm in the corporate world now, and I saw too often different charities, different foundations in competition with each other, and it just really wasn't helpful. So congratulations on that. My question to you, I'm going to be joining the Seniors Committee in just a few weeks, and you've given me hope. I would like to know, given that we are soon going to have a very large number, well, we already have a large number of seniors, and that number is growing in Canada, what gives you hope?
That we are here in the same room talking about it.
Good answer.
There's a lot of solutions out there, and someone said today who thinks that things are getting better, and I think I'm the only one that wanted to raise his hand. I think that we have a lot of tools out there. That the example of partnering with the city and the province over supportive housing was actually finding a solution within the problem. We have a lot of resources. We always think about how to build new. We're not talking enough about how to repurpose what we have and utilize what we already have. There's a lot of solutions out there. It's just sometimes we're not thinking inside the box. We're thinking too much outside the box, and vice versa. So I think that's where we just need to keep working together and talk about it. And people that are like-minded need to sit down and find solutions together. There is always a solutions out there. There is no problem without a solution in this world.
Well, unless there are any other questions, that seems like a good place to end. Let's give Mohammed and Connections for Seniors, obviously a whole organization, a whole team. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Great presentation,